Hello there guys, it's Joey and welcome back to this series I Can't Witch Without, and this week it is I Can't Witch Without Rowan or Louis. Louis is the Ogham of the tree Rowan, and the precursor to this video is thus. The I Can't Witch Without series is not to say that you require any or all of the products, trees, herbs, crystals, whatever it may be, featured in order to be a witch. The purpose of the video is to have a in-depth look from week to week at different items which make up a regular part of my personal practice and why. And I give two source materials as reference. So I read to you the meanings from two, usually two, sometimes more depending on the material available, resources. And I do this for a number of reasons. One, it gives completely new beginners an idea of a point of reference where you can go get the book if you so require and go find those meanings. It gives us a bouncing off place as well, which I think is really important to sort of give a structure to the videos. So it talks about the given meanings, and then we talk a little bit more about how I feel about the particular tree, my experiences, my feelings about whether or not I agree with the source material, personal spell work perhaps that I have done with the particular energies of the tree, or in this case tree, so we'll just say it for that sake, and how I feel about it. And I think that this provides a all-round view of the item in question. So that's what we do, and the two source references this week are the Cunningham's Encyclopedia of Magical Herbs, which is probably one of the first herbal books that most witches come into contact with, is readily available and inexpensive. And the one that I actually prefer as a compendium is a Compendium of Herbal Magic by Paul Beryl. He also has a herbalism book which is very good and interesting and worth reading. Right. So, for those of you who don't follow the Celtic tree calendar, it is a modern invention and some people don't like it, but I think it's a good way to connect each month with a particular tree. I enjoy it. So we just moved in yesterday to the Celtic Ogham month of Louis or Rowan. I for one am super glad to see Rowan. Usually Rowan can be a little bit more challenging, but silver birch, my god, it was it's usually a birth tree, silver birch, and this year it really did highlight the death aspect connected to the birth aspect and how they're inextricably linked and intertwined. It was a tough month. We're not through January yet, obviously, as the Rowan begins at the tail end rather than dead on February. But I for one am really glad to feel the energy shift, and I do feel the shift that has happened in the last few days. So Rowan, according to the Cunningham Encyclopedia, is associated with masculine energies of sun and fire. It gives a relation here to the deity Thor, powers of psychic power, healing, success and protection. Rowanwood carried increases psychic powers, and the branches are often used in fashioning dowsing rods and magical wands. Add the leaves and berries to divinational incenses, as well as those designed to increase psychic powers. Carrying the berries or the bark aids in recuperation, and they are added to healing and health sachets and mixtures, as well as power, success and luck sachets. For centuries, Rowan has been used for protective purposes in Europe. 2 twigs tied together with red thread make a cross. It is an age-old protective amulet, and there is one in shot. Preparedness. Cornish peasants carried these amulets in their pockets, and Scottish Highlanders inserted them into the lining of their clothing. Be interested to know where that comes from, the source material comes from, but there you go. Walking sticks made of rowan are excellent tools for the person who roams woods and fields by night. Rowan carried on board a ship will prevent its involvement in storms. Kept in the house guards against lightning strikes. When planted on a grave, rowan keeps the deceased one from haunting the place. The rowan tree near the house protects it and its occupants, and those rowans growing near stone circles are the most potent. I've just thought of something. I shall pause the video after we've read the other book's meanings. Okie dokie. So, in an interesting twist, in the Herbal Compendium, rowan is given to being sacred to the moon. Of a counter-magic herb, herb of protection, magical herb, and a visionary herb. This is one of the weird quirks of many trees. So, some will give rowan as being very, very solar, whereas the compendium, it gives it as being a lunar herb, and the question then becomes, well, who is right, or is it both, or what do we do in these situations where the source material contradicts other source material? And I think you can go in a number of ways. One, depending on whose source material you prefer all round and how accurate your experiences or feelings or intuition is with the source material in question. So if you prefer one book to the other, you might feel that one book is correct in your estimation because that is your experience anyway. You're feeling, you feel more connected to that explanation. So I'm going to read the law and the usage from the compendium and talk about what I feel about that. Law. How can I not consider this one of my favourites, having used this tree as a symbol for the church I founded? For us, the rowan is a tree of life from which we gain wisdom. The berries of the rowan have been called foods of the gods, according to Graves in the White Goddess. One of the magical trees of ancient Britain, the rowan is the letter L or Louis in the Ogham alphabet. Also from the White Goddess, we learn that in ancient Greece, the rowan was designated as sacred and can only be eaten when giving respect and honour to one's ancestors. From the belief in the protective qualities of the tree, the belief in the protective qualities of the herbal tree is well established. From protection against lightning to protection against negative energies, the rowan is sure to keep us from bad times as long as we respect its guardian spirit, which is a sacred tree mother. A popular charm? Yeah, you know about the popular charm because there it is right in front of you again. So, usage. Graves says this tree is connected with the White Goddess, and the Master Book of Herbalism says that we may use the rowan to richly invoke the goddess and ask her for help, direction, and bounty. The leaves are commonly used, but the berries may be gathered, dried, and added to incense. The rowan represents the Divine Mother manifest upon the earth. The magical properties of rowan are many, as is shown by Graves in the White Goddess. The berries of the magical rowan and the Irish romance of Freoth, guarded by a dragon, had the sustaining virtue of the 9 meals. They also healed the wounded and added a year to the man's life. The berries of the wood may be used to invite familiars, astral guides, and teachers from the realm of spirit, or to invoke elemental creatures. Conversely, the rowan may also be used to banish those things we don't want in our lives. I'm going to stop right there and say that I think that the ability to summon as well as the ability to banish are more or less the same thing. They should be interlinked in one's knowledge, that one should never summon that which one cannot banish. Just a thought that they're maybe not as conversely as you might think. When used in ritual, particularly the berries as part of the feast, they make a lovely jelly. We may find that the creative process has been set in motion. A ritual wand may be made of rowan. Such tool is believed to be the source of great wisdom and knowledge. Graves, in The White Goddess, writes that the oracular use of the rowan explains the unexpected presence of the great rowan thickets in Rune and other Baltic amber islands. Is there affinity between rowan and amber? We would like to think so, but this is based upon conjecture. Although the rowan may be used in house blessings in any form, my favourite method has to be to plant a young tree so each home has its own rowan. So that's nice. Right, I'm going to pause the video for 1 second and grab something which I should have thought of before, but here we go. Okie dokie, so the thing that I forgot to put on to show is actually my first wand. So this is one of my first, in fact my very first wand, which people may or may not have seen before, depending on how long you've been with me and whether or not you've seen most of the videos. If you haven't seen this before, let's just move so I can show you in full length. This is my first wand, and it was created by a witch in Canterbury, and she only made a very limited amount of them, and it is it's a good 11 or 12 years old now. That's depressing. There are small children the same age as my wand. Okay, and I felt very, very drawn to this wand, incredibly so. For a very long time, my spirit stone, which is the stone that connected me most to divinity, was amethyst. And as I grew, in more recent times, it became labradorite, so I transitioned, I moved. And whereas I do still use amethyst, it's not the same as it used to be in my path. So it doesn't happen very often to me that things really switch like that, but that did happen. But Rowan has been present right from the very beginning of coming into contact with magical items, magical tools, as the wand shows, you know. I was very, very drawn to it. I've had it since I first purchased it. I felt good about purchasing it from a local witch at that time. It's way before, you know, I would have even considered creating anything of my own of that nature. And way before I knew about my Celtic path, and way before I knew about the Ogham and the language of trees. So this was a chosen magical instrument on intuition, purely intuition, and Rowan has had a place all throughout my life. Now this magical wand is one of the very few things that has stayed with me no matter what, and I've moved from home to home, you know, completely lost my home at one point, and yet this wand has stayed with me no matter what. So it's important to me, Rowan, in the understanding and the evolution of my path. A couple of things that aren't mentioned in the 2 source materials that we just read is that Rowan is known as the Lady of the Mountains, as well as Mountain Ash, and it's also known as the Witch's Tree. None of that is addressed in those 2 source materials. The bark and energy of Rowan is intrinsically linked to witches throughout culture and history, and the charm that is mentioned is really aesthetically known. The 2 crossed pieces of Rowan and the red thread is known, and I feel like Game of Thrones, it is known, And it's instantly recognizable as being associated as an amulet of protection, and is associated with witchcraft as a protective amulet to be hung in the windows or in the doors. So Rowan is a tree, an ogham, an energy very much of protection. And the amulet, being so forthright in our mind, goes to show that it's just kind of something that we are aware of. My intuition in picking Rowan as my first wand was very much about increasing my psychic powers, as well as spiritual evolution, spiritual growth and protection. As we've already mentioned from the source material, and as I am aware of and have incorporated Rowan as well, it has a growth effect, and that's on psychic abilities as well as protection. Rowan really amplifies magic, and I think that to me is why it is the witch's tree. It amplifies the energies for which it already resonates, and it amplifies what you already are. So when you're engaging with Rowan, you're increasing your natural goddess, God-given abilities. So in terms of protection, the tree amplifies your desire to feel safe in your own home. When creating the cross with the red thread, you're imbuing it with these energies of wanting to create a magical barrier in your home, and the Rowan takes that and amplifies it up. Throughout history, Rowan has been used to deflect negative energy, to deflect bad luck. It's also associated with the ability, because it also increases your awareness. So it increases your awareness to attack, to forewarn you. So the ability to be psychically aware of negative energy or psychic attack or things of that nature, and be prepared for them, forewarned, is definitely an energy of Rowan to help you be aware and ramp up your psychic abilities, so you are forewarned about what may be coming your way. And Rowan can be a really wonderful addition, not only to a protection magic, but kind of really ramping up your awareness, your intuition, and trusting the process. Rowan is also associated with the festival of Imbolg and the goddess Brigid. Now, Brigid has her flaming arrows of justice, and whenever I think of Rowan, this is the initial image that I get. So the goddess Brigid is associated with many elements, and some of them are so she's associated with poetry and creativity and fire energy. And for me, Rowan has always felt a little bit more fiery rather than the more lunar energy that's given in the Herbal Compendium. So although I prefer the Herbal Compendium, I would tend to favour it being associated more with a fire element. And its bright red berries and the association with the bright red thread kind of ties into that colour magic associated with fire. So Brigid is very much a goddess of poetry and song and inspiration. Again, energies of which we amplify ourselves. Human beings are amplified through inspiration and poetry. It is the expression of the soul, and to express oneself in such beautiful format, to look at the world around us as a moving, breathing, living work of art, and to feel the beauty of nature around us, is to really improve who we are as human beings, because we are seeing outside of ourselves. We are appreciating the world around us. And pagans, inverted commas, sent a beauty and a godliness or a goddessliness from nature already. So this is part of why a lot of people, witches, pagans, however you wish to determine, come to this spirituality, this pathway initially, because nature, in a lot of cases, not all, drums up something in us that's already there, this sort of feeling, this sort of awe, this sort of amazing beauty. And through the connection to the goddess Brigid, Rowan ties in to that amplification once again, because it is singing to us, it's singing the song of Brigid, which is looking at the world around us, appreciating the beauty, and perhaps creating more beauty from that beauty because you are creating poetry or you're creating song, which are very revered in Celtic tradition, the power of the spoken word. Divination is also the realm of the goddess Brigid, who is associated with Imbolc and Rowan, of course, in case I didn't clarify that simply enough. So she had, it's very much about fires, about flame glimpsing, about reading, scrying within fire, and I think that's a really wonderful practice that can be practiced at Round Imbolc for the celebration of the festivities, is actually to burn a little bit of rowan bark and to allow yourself to scry in the flame. I've always found flame scrying to be incredibly peaceful and relaxing, but also it really does heighten the senses, and adding rowan to that mix is just amplifying up again, taking what's already there and then just adding a little bit more magic, which rowan's all about. Rowan is always add a little bit more magic. You can do it, come on, It also has its protective vibe through Brigid with her flaming arrows of justice, which is a side of the goddess Brigid which isn't often addressed in popular culture in modern times anyway, and I think it's something that, absolutely ought to be. That justice is the realm of the goddess Brigid as well, and her flaming arrows. And flaming arrows of Rowan really throws into relief the protective side of Rowan, and a flame, and the protection and the justice is on fire, and all that creation energy as well as that ability to destroy energy is within those arrows, and it's sharp, to the point, and delivers swift justice. Rowan for me has always been there. It's one of the trees that, living in England, perhaps living in Britain, it's a very visible tree. There is a lot of rowan in the UK. On a mundane level, there just seems to be a lot of it. And on another visual level, it's quite aesthetically, visually stunning. And so it should be, being associated with Brigid, with her beauty and her poetry. But you can always recognise it from the berries, and the leaves are quite unique as well. There's no mistaking the leaf. But the berries are really, really visible when they come into fruition. And I've always been surrounded by it. I'm surrounded by it right now. We have, there are at least two. I'm thinking if there might be another out back, but I think it's just two at the minute. And growing up, there was a rowan nearby all the time. And a rowan being my first wand. And it has been a backbone of discovering that I'm a witch and learning about my capability. It opens doors, I think, is the best way I can describe it. Rowan really does open the door into who you are and who you want to be, and the psychic ability to see past who you are now and believe that you can be better, more advanced, you can grow. And the ability to protect yourself in the process, because often when we grow as witches, it can be a really difficult, sometimes heart-wrenching, sometimes soul-wrenching experience. We can go through many stages of personal growth, and it's not all sweetness and cakes. Sometimes it can be a really grinding, difficult experience, and at those times Rowan not only gives us the insight into the beauty of who we are, to remind us, you know, it's all part of the beautiful process. You are a gorgeous human being, gorgeous witch, you're gonna be fine, and here's the sort of visions of the future or where you're going to be, but it also backs it up with a level of protection so that, you know, nothing's going to prey on you while you might be in a low spot. Rowan to me is also kind of a chatty tree, a talkative tree. I think Rowan is one of the easiest trees to open up an energetic dialogue with, if you like, to connect to the energy of the deva of the tree, the spirit of the tree. That being said, Rowan is one of those trees that absolutely demands respect. It's been around, particularly in the UK, for a long time, and it gives a lot of itself. But it demands that kind of respect, that kind of building a relationship. I think it's probably one of the most giving trees. It will freely give of itself, it will freely help you, it will freely amplify your energies, it will absolutely assist you. But I think respect is always needed, particularly when dealing with trees, because they're so ancient and so wise and so incredible within the realms of magic and energy. But it really is kind of, I think it's maybe because it's so regenerative, English, there we go. And it's used in a lot of healing magic, and that's something I haven't actually covered in a great deal. It can be used for sore throats and hoarseness. It can be used as a mild laxative, amplifying what's already there. It's the berries, I believe. Is it yeah, the berries for a mild laxative. Yeah. Rune is also used for tanning and making a black dye used by the Druids. So, yeah. So in terms of its healing properties, I think that if you're talking about on an energetic magical level, which is the only level that I am going to really fully delve into here, then really, again, it's all tying into Rowan's ability to amplify. So Rowan has this healing energy and has the ability to amplify your natural healing ability, your natural resistance to whatever it may be that is causing you problem. And on an energetic level, if you're feeling lethargic and you're feeling, you know, energetically attacked, if you're feeling emotionally drained, if you're feeling that people are getting at you and it's triggering perhaps anxiety and things of that nature, Rowan helps to form a barrier against the negative impact of outside influences that can prevent healing. It also helps to amplify your natural given ability to heal, to meditate, to relax. I find it an incredibly joyful tree, berry, leaf to work with. I think it's incredibly beautiful, and it was my namesake for a long time in the pagan community. Like, outwardly, like the name I gave myself to go on forums and stuff, because I adore it. I think it's always been there. It's always been a guardian. It's always been a protector. And it's kind of choking me up a little bit to think about it this way, but it's true. And Rowan as an energy has always been there and has always surrounded and enveloped and kept me safe. And I think in a lot of ways I owe a great debt to the energy of the Rowan trees. They have always been where I have been. When I've been living somewhere, they've always been close by. And you can call that, coincidence if you like, but I think that that's a very odd coincidence given I've moved quite a few times and Rowan has always been there. I've always been guided to a place where Rowan is nearby and the energies have fused with home, as far as I'm concerned. Home and hearth has always been fused with Rowan energy. An interesting last thought. In Wales, from where half my family hearken, it was planted by churches to protect the spirits of the dead. To protect the spirits of the dead. And I think it's very interesting that Rowan in its healing capacity heals all people, living or dead, and creates doorways to help people move to where they should be and find a place of health and healing and protection. I think it's deeply grounding, I think it's deeply wise, and I think it's something that should be incorporated in everybody's practice, because I just absolutely freaking adore Rowan. So this was I Can't Witch Without. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm sorry we haven't had one for a couple of weeks. It's just been playing catch up and migraine city. Which is always thrilling, but we shall be using Rowan and doing some healing because I'm going to take my own advice. So that's it. Many blessings.